Good evening. Today we're going to change gears from writing code that does code stuff, or at least pretending to, or writing tests of that code. And instead, we're going to take a stab at make an attempt to start styling the application using Tailwind. Now, there's a billion other code things we can do. We're really taking our time building this application. And again, if you're new here, last week we did some refactoring, some testing. Week before that, we did some Rails routing and controller stuff. Week before that, we started work on an application to create a virtual conversation partner to practice Japanese with, as well as some kind of ancillary features to help out. And at our current pace, by the time it's all finished, it'll be late 2027. But that's okay, because ultimately I have chosen to resist the urge to just turn off the camera and just hack this thing up and build it, because I think it's more important to leave behind some trace of what it was like to program computers before they programmed them for us. So here we go. All right, so we're going to do Tailwind, which is a CSS framework. You know, I'll let their webpage tell us what it is. Rapidly build modern websites without ever leaving your HTML. You write little utility classes like this. They got a cute little page here. I really enjoy it. Can I edit that? Nope, it's not editable. But it's still a very cute page, and you see the animation and how it affects the look and feel. If your first reaction to this is, ugh, like, what is this gobbledygook? There's so much being tacked into these classes. You're right, and that was my first reaction. And when I thought about how adding classes would change the appearance like that, you know, like I just thought about Bootstrap and this weird coupling between now I'm adding some presentation stuff to the HTML, which is supposed to be the document, and I'm adding some additional like stuff in my CSS to sort of customize a template. Where this differs and why Tailwind seems to work is that these utility classes are not providing you with a UI framework so much as utility classes for just using CSS generally, with the goal being to write zero or near zero actual CSS. I have accomplished that now on a couple different applications. My friend at Pixel Janitor, Derek Briggs, he turned me on to this. As he often does with new front end stuff. And what I love about using this, other than like no longer having the Peter Griffin's blinds, you know, CSS problem of trying to balance both things at once and coordinate all these things, is that I find that as I scope down into a more narrow view component, even if by view component I mean a div that contains a text area, as I get closer in, I can always rely on those utility classes behaving the same way, and I can cap whatever complexity goes into that particular text area then and there. And I can use partials, I can use JavaScript components whenever I've got a bit of complexity in one of these class strings to extract that out and then reuse it. And it works surprisingly well. It really, it's the closest I've felt to like feeling comfortable around componentizing stuff. So we've got Tailwind already in place in this application. We're going to keep this handy because it's one of those pages that's got really good Command K search. If I want to know like how to do borders, I don't know. It'll tell you all about borders and stuff. It's a very good doc site, in my opinion. All right. So let's open up Visual Studio Code. So less in the terminal today. And we got some setup to do. We've already done the bulk of it. The thing to look for here is, do I have, nope, not, do I have CSS bundling? Yeah. So I if you recall, and I've hearkened back to this many times. If you recall, we actually passed TacTac CSS Tailwind to our Rails new command. And the reason we did that was it did the setup for us. So it adds CSS bundling. CSS bundling then in turn, you know, again, if we kind of work back to front, procfile dev defines a task that runs as development runs, and that's a package JSON script that Yarn executes called build CSS. So if we open up the package JSON, build CSS points to the Tailwind CLI, and basically just like a default configuration that will work with the asset pipeline and bundle our stuff in production correctly. So the plumbing is done for us. That's just a recap. The next thing we have to look out for is there's this configuration file. Now, by default, it's just declaring, because Tailwind uses a JIT, a just-in-time compiler, it's trying to minimize the amount of production CSS that you need. So if you only use 5 out of the 1,000 classes, really infinitely many once you consider variants, if you only use 5 of the classes, it wants to be able to destroy and remove from your production CSS file all the stuff you don't use. And it turns out that like once you've done that and you've compressed the CSS, you're shipping actually much less CSS than you thought. So that's, by declaring them here, the JIT knows these are the places where I can search for the exact class strings and I will find them. And then I will know not to discard those particular classes from the ultimate build. That means if you do fancy stuff like interpolation and build like, dynamically a class string, it's not going to find that and it's going to blow up. And so there's a way to do that using a safe keyword. And we're going to just try to avoid even needing that. Next up in this config, and we're going to, every time you see me look up, I'm looking at another project that I've done. I'm trying to avoid a lot of copy pasta. I am. I'm trying to. But there's certain math stuff around, like, because like, in spite of the fact that this is not a UI framework, it is a opinionated design system. Oh, that's my first regret of the night, everybody. Let's have a cocktail. Using the word design system. So this should be on my other hand because this is hard to drink. Tonight's beverage is a very basic and mediocre, but fine. It's not the whiskey's fault. A very basic Bulleit Rye Manhattan with just Martini and Rossi sweet vermouth and a Luxardo cherry, which I bought before COVID. So that's not, I don't know how long Luxardo cherries are supposed to last, but all I know is that like it's like $40 for like a little jar of them now. And I'm milking all those last cherries and the remaining syrup for all they're worth. So it's, anyway, I don't know if you call this a design system was my point. So, all right, looking at the spacing here, what this method's doing is it's just generating a big ol' array of named position sizes, because like a lot of things go down to sizing, and having a sizing system based in pixels that goes down to really, really small, including the individual pixel, is something that my friend Pixel Janitor, Derek, taught me. Because if you really care about your design, you got to think in terms of pixels and math and having everything add up at the end of the day, or else what are we even doing here? And as a programmer, it's an ethos that I can get behind. Okay, opacity, similar. We want a whole scale of all the valid opacities between 0 and 100 with increments of 5, I think. That's why it's an array of 21. We also have this colorify thing. Oh boy, look, like, if this doesn't make sense, I'll gist this or something. Tell you what, I'll gist it, and if I forget, remind me in the YouTube comments. I'm going to gist this as sort of just a magical starting point, if you're down to clown with it. So, Tailwind ships with a whole bunch of colors. We're going to look at those colors now. Nope. Colors. Nope. Colors. Customizing color? Text color? Nope. Maybe it is theme color and I just got carried away because it wasn't above the fold. Customizing colors. Using the default colors. Here we go. Remember how I said this was like an amazing doc site? It really is when you're searching for a CSS feature. It's a little bit less custom colors, default colors. Oh boy, there's a default. There it is. Hey, I'm not going to edit that because this is raw and uncut mostly. If my doorbell rings, I'll cut that because I'm embarrassed about my packages. It's a long story. So these are the colors it knows. And the way that you express one of these colors is you would say like text dash orange, lowercase, dash, and then a shade. How orange do you want this to be? How dark, how light? And you can just use these colors willy-nilly everywhere, but it can be hard to remember like, oh yeah, like an active button should be emerald 400 background. And so instead, I like to assign those. I like to, meaning like Derek Briggs, Pixel Janitor, just told me to do this, and I started doing it. Hi, Derek, if you're probably not watching this. I like to instead assign those to CSS variable names. So that's what we're going to ultimately do. Additionally, to get any custom CSS variable names to be opacifiable, transparentizable using Tailwind, you need to define them in a particular way, namely using space delimited, well, I guess here, space delimited, RGB values as opposed to comma, so that they can be divided by an alpha value. And so the CSS variable is just going to be 3 numbers per color as opposed to spelling out like the color itself. So it seems useless, but what it allows us to do is use these colors with varying amounts of transparency, the custom named colors. I hope that's not clear as mud yet. Now we're going to define a couple constants of colors that I like, fun colors. We're going to just do some basic stuff. Assuming we have a primary and a secondary border color, background color, text color, they will probably be pretty neutral. As well as some semantic colors, which we could, like if we have like info, warn, error, if you're familiar with like, blue, yellow, warning, whatever from like a bootstrap. Semantic colors that like mean things. Here, I'm going to only start with like an accent color. We'll pick a color out and we'll do that. I don't know how long we've been going. I didn't start my stopwatch because somebody didn't remind me to start my stopwatch. So here we go. Do I have a way if I go up to my dingus? All right, we're 11 minutes in. That's what that says. Okay, so 11 minutes. Keep on trucking. Next up, this module exports has other values. We are going to add spacing. So spacing, we just set it up to be the same as this. It wants an array that is shaped this way. So that's what we're going to do. We also going to do all these colors. So I'm going to just, again, please forgive me for the copy pasta. We're going to extend now the theme. There's a nuanced difference between what is extending a theme and what isn't. For example, oh shoot, this is already one layer. So a theme, boom, should be like that. The shape of this config file feels like something that's grown over time because it doesn't make an intuitive sense to me, but also I'm a big dum-dum, so maybe that's just me. So I'm exporting a theme, which is defining this spacing, so overriding, and then this is stuff to extend, which gets munged in with the default theme. So it's not too silly. All right, so background color can be BG primary, BG secondary. Border color, border primary, border secondary, border tertiary. We're going to nix that one now because I don't think I'm not ready for 3 borders. 2 borders is good enough for you, I say. All right. Let's see. Box shadow color. Allow them to be accentable. Okay, sure. That makes sense. Text color, text primary, text secondary, and then plus the semantic colors. Max width and min width should be assignable to the same as all the other sizes. And then opacity should be the 20 values, 0, 5, 10, 15, so forth. If that's still clear to you, you probably already know how to use Tailwind. So kudos for watching something you already know how to do. Hopefully I didn't screw it up too badly. Let me know in the comments. Engage. All right. The next config thing, and I realize this is not how tutorials are supposed to go, right? I'm supposed to start with something small and build a little thing, but like I'm not here for that. I desperately want this thing to exist, and I'm getting frustrated by how long it's taken me. So instead, we're just going to ramrod this through. All right. I'm going to create a new file called colors that I will eventually successfully create. In fact, I'm just going to stick it into the top level here. New file, colors.css. I feel like such a grown-up just using a raw CSS file after so many years doing Sass. So I'm still, my brain is pretty much fried from the idea of Sass as in Sass, not SCSS, but rather like indentations. Seeing all these semicolons just breaks my heart. So this is actually using the same, I can show you the source for this one, I suppose. This is my personal blog. And so my personal blog uses these purple accents. And what you'll notice about these colors, and the reason I like using variables, is that in general, with Tailwind, you can set dark mode stuff using what's called a variant. Yes, variant. So a variant is anything that leads a class with a colon. So dark colon, yada yada, will apply a rule, but only in dark mode. And you can see how this kind of like gets unwieldy very quickly. Well, here's a background white, but dark is BG slate. Imagine like assigning each and every single individual thing that particular color. So it's bad enough to be assigning specific colors everywhere, because if you choose to change from like rows 300 to rows 400, now you got to grep it throughout the whole code base. Additionally, if you have to consider dark mode for every single little thing, that's a gigantic vector for both change and for forgetfulness. So you'll have like little random patches of UI that are miscolored when you are only in dark mode. So a designer or a developer who's like always in light mode might just not catch it. That would be bad. So instead, by using variables, you may not be familiar, but one of the things that's wonderful about CSS variables in the modern day is you can use a media query to say, are they in dark mode? Prefers color scheme is like a way for the standards body, W3C or whoever, to like de-Apple brandify it, because of course Apple was the first one to, I think, propose this. That's probably not true. I'm just such an Apple nut that I probably just disrespected some Android developer who actually created this. All right, so we're setting root variables top level, not applying them to particular classes. This is top level stuff. Also, the light and dark classes can be used to override if we choose. This is what we're saying. This is not a thing. This is custom code that I wrote, that I copy pasted from Pixel Janitor. Again, full disclosure, he knows all this shit. So yeah, you can see the background is white with a lighter secondary background. Borders are, gray, and then the third one that's quite light. The text is a dark gray, and a secondary text is a less dark gray. But then you swap to dark mode, and everything's basically inverted, right? So the accent colors, bright and light, are quite light, and the accent color is just like a little bit more muted. And then BG primary, BG secondary, these are much darker with text that is much lighter. Make sense? All right. So that's a lot of copy paste, which makes me quite skeptical it's going to just work. Additionally, let's remove from layout application the only bit of tailwindiness that we've written so far. We're going to start completely fresh. I guess this text right as well. There'll be an opportunity to come back to this. All right, so let's run bin/dev rbend HTML beautifier. I don't know how that works. It's an extension that's presumably going to beautify some HTML at some point. All right, open up Safari, localhost 3000. All right, here we go. We got nothing. So let's at the very top level assign the text rule that we want. So we can say, I guess on the body here, well, I don't know. We've got a div wrapper around the whole app. Class, text, and then this is cool. This is what got me to switch to VS Code, was the Tailwind extension for VS Code is very good and is very difficult to imagine an as good of one if you use a terminal-based editor like Vim, at least in a terminal. So I have Vim mode enabled, so I'm using some hodgepodge of Vim movements. But if I say text primary and then colon out, it auto-completed, it knew it was valid, and then, oh my goodness, up. And then shit happened, and it didn't pop up, and then it looked like it was popping underneath the editor window. Welcome to Electron, everyone. So text primary has opacity 1, and the color is exactly that RGB scheme that we had before. So we can go and check on this, refresh the page, and you can, if you have eagle vision, eagle eyes, you can see this moved to a slightly darker gray. So if we go over here, Yoshmangela, and we pop back up to the top class, you can see here text opacity 1, color, RGB, yada yada, and you can see it's 58, 58, 58. So that's exactly what we wanted it to be. So there we go. That's not bad. So we're about 20 minutes in. We've got a basic setup that might work for us. And you look at this thing, right? The reason I wanted to do Tailwind today is like, I haven't really thought very hard about what I want this user interface to look like, but I know a chat app when I see one. Having a button to send, I might want an arrow icon for that, and also want to respond with an enter key. Of course, the form stuff is going to be tricky. I'm going to show you a trick about that too, how I do forms with Rails without adding another dependency and actually just using the default form builder, or overwriting the default form builder stuff, as opposed to pulling in another dep to do it for me. And I'd also like this thing to scroll. So if it's the case that it's just an infinite scrolling chat like so many other chats are, I want it to overflow so that this maybe the chat box gets pegged to the bottom of the screen, fixed position, and everything here overflows. Now, sometimes, and I used to be this way, I've been making websites since like 1996. I was just having this conversation. Angelfire was the first one that I made. It was an Angelfire site. But I got on the website making train pretty early. One of the first things I've always done is start with the UI Chrome, use where has my navigation? How's the layout going to be? What's the information architecture of this? When I'm doing something appy like this, I would rather, to our conversation last week about last responsible moment, I would rather actually just wait to see what features emerge. I went through this whole 3-month ordeal building an application that I thought was going to need a bunch of UI last year. And so I put the 3 big buttons at the top of the 3 main aspects. And then I proceeded to build exactly the entire app in the first page, and was like, oh, well, this UI is kind of silly. I felt pressured to implement the other features, even though they weren't really as necessary. Okay. So where to start here? Well, of course, we could do... Now, something you miss with Tailwind, if you like using classes as a shorthand for what the hell is this element all about, you can still do that. In fact, you could use a more appropriate attribute like rel or whatever and be chat window, and still select on that if you'd like. Or use data attributes for that stuff if you're going to pull them from JavaScript. But a selling point of Tailwind's marketing that I don't really buy is, and you don't have to think of class names anymore. Honestly, thinking of names is one of the most useful things about programming because it forces me to think. Because here I'm okay, so what's this div? I don't know. Let's just slap some shit on it. Throw some mud on there. Let's make this BG primary, and let's make it. I guess this isn't even the big thing. This is just the flashes. All right. Well, I'm going to put BG primary on the big thing and call that the chat window for now, and we can always push it down. We don't have any other stuff to interact with, but just for the sake of illustration, you can see border here, border width 1, so it previews out, and you can click it and see what the CSS looks like. Border, and I could say, border secondary, border primary. If it's the first border, I probably want to say border primary. Again, it doesn't matter right now. In fact, it doesn't matter at all, so screw it. Until it has something to border, it doesn't make any sense. Oh, you know what, though? We're going to also max the size. So we're going to say max W. We could do, you see how we defined all these, and now they're moving up by predictable increments. We could do that and say this is how many pixels. We could do 50%. We could do max W screen. This is what I prefer to do. So this is the breakpoint system that comes with Tailwind: small, medium, large, XL, and 2XL. No 3XL, I suppose. 1024 seems like a reasonable number of points to start with. So let's say that the chat window can be that big. And then it's also very easy to make rounded corners. So we can make it rounded throughout. We can make just the top rounded. We can make just the bottom rounded. Let's start with just a normal amount of rounded, and you can super round it if you'd like and make it the radius bigger. But let's just start with rounded and see where we're at. Let's go ahead and refresh that page. All right, cool. So talking through what we wanted was enough to kind of get us pretty close to where we wanted to be. I'm going to... oops, I'm going to go into that colors file. I think I saw that the background primary was exactly white. Was it? Yeah, let's make it a little bit. I had a friend of mine who is a designer. His name's Chris Hamrick, and he actually is the guy who, his studio Basecraft are the ones who just designed the TD logo mark way back for Testable, our company, in 2012. And they also did our first website design, our real one. And he said to me, never make something totally white or totally black. Always just a little bit off. And I took that and ran with it. So I never make anything totally white or totally black. If you've ever seen any of my keynote presentations, like slides and stuff, never totally white, totally black. See, it's a little bit off. Our brains are wired at this point to see white, because we look at it on our screen so much. And it feels cheaper, I think, in my opinion. Maybe that's just me. Now, this next thing, MX Auto, I'm realizing now, like, it kind of takes a long time to indoctrinate somebody to Tailwind. So I hope you brought your Bulleit Rye. I'm now concerned about the safety of these cherries, because like the skin's kind of peeling back, and like I'm gonna just tell myself that's caramelized sugar. That'll be our little secret. All right. So MX Auto, M is the leader for like M dash something. Like if I say M1, it's being slow. M2, margin 16. It'll be a margin on all four sides. I could say like margin left 2, it'll be margin left 16. I could say margin right 2, and it'll be margin right 16. Or I could just say MX2, and it'll be margin left and margin right 16. I could also say MY 2, and of course, like it would be the Y axis. What you saw me do is say MX Auto, which will do a margin auto on both left and right. Another thing. Margin auto left and right, and then that'll center that main div, I hope. Okay, so another thing. Imagine you're writing this many classes over and over again. Having a systematic or consistent order of the classes would be really useful. And so there are a handful of different efforts, I'm not sure if one is officially blessed or not, to define or specify an appropriate ordering, and then editor tools that will coerce that into the right order. So you can see here it's width, and then margin, and then border, and then rounded, and then text, and then background. And, oh, actually, you know what? And then custom shit, because it doesn't know about our custom shit. So that's a shortcoming, I suppose, of this tool. It's called Headwind. It removes duplicate classes, sorts stuff out. Oh, this is a tool for, you can define custom regex for different file types. I wonder, like, can it do custom prepend? No, you can do prepend too, like have all your Tailwind start with TW if you want. I was kind of hoping to see here something that would be like custom colors or custom names, but regardless. Okay, did the center. It centered. Huzzah. Okay. So next up, as long as this is the only thing on the page, let's just set the height to using like VH units to 100, so it's like always the full height of the app. Excuse me, full height of the window. So let's say, I don't know how to do this. Viewport. Full is going to be height 100%. How do I do 100 VH? I mean, I could say 100 VH, and that would do it, right? Let's say viewport height. Hello. See, now that's an example. It's an example. Been pretty nice documentation. And you can see H screen is the magic. So a lot of, it just feels arcane. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I changed focus, which triggered a save, which moved my shit over that way. Like H screen MD feels like it should work, but really that's how max H screen MD. Nope. What did I do wrong? Max H. Is it only width? Oh. So that didn't do anything. But if I do this, does it do anything? All right, so that worked. But if I say H screen, oh my goodness, H screen. Okay, that's 100 VH. Whatever. You know what? I was sharing that for illustrative purposes only. All right, so here we go. So there's H screen. Next up, I want to fix this dude right here to the bottom. And I could either fix it to the bottom or could I define this thing just to take up all the available space? And this thing would just be stuck at the bottom. Like if I were to say, and now we're going to have to dive in, I can close this. This is the layout. This is all that the layout shows us. When I get into the actual view of chats and look at show, there's no wrapper around this, which is sort of silly, right? Let's do one. Div. Because this is where it should live. There's that HTML beautifier failing again. What is this? How's that supposed to work? I like it when it does work. It's a globally installed Ruby gem, and I'm also updated to Ruby 3.2.1. Please update now. All right. Now, whenever you get stuck in VS Code like this, if you just do reload window, it's as if none of that ever happened. And this time, see, it auto-indented. Isn't that nifty? All right. The name of that extension over here is yada yada something something. I already scrolled past it twice, haven't I? And you're just being nice. There it is. It doesn't have a logo. This is why, Ali, we add logos to our thing. So only 90,000 downloads. Still an up-and-comer. Similar to standard Ruby, which only has 2,000 downloads. Very disappointed that y'all haven't convinced the world to use our standard tool yet. If I eat this cherry, which I'm about to do, and then I die, I will regret not learning how to live stream this because no one's going to figure out how to export this screen flow and show you all that I'm dying. Boozy cherry. I always wonder what are these glasses called? It's a coupe. I think it's called a coupe glass. I called it for a gimlet for years, but I have no idea if that's just because the cocktail gimlet is served in them. Maybe it is. All right, we're at 30 minutes. Good time to take a little snack break. Okay. So I got this div. I want each of these is also a div, but obviously I'm going to have to apply some rules to the chatty portion of the evening. And then the form, I can apply classes to the form itself if I like. As additional keyword arguments after build, like over here. But as you might have detected, like it's already complex enough. So it's easier just to use plain old HTML so that you don't have to think about the context of the form as well as the form helper, rather, the Ruby there, as well as the Tailwind class. So I'll just put a wrapping div. It doesn't hurt anything. All right. So if I say height full, will that be enough? No. If I say H0, this is hacky, right? Yeah, good. I'm almost glad it didn't work. If I say, I guess I have to, when you do half height full, you need to do it at every level. Oh, there we go. Okay, so height full did successfully push it up, but with scrolling. So I want to set up overflow scroll, overflow Y scroll specifically. Now, I've never in my life gotten overflow Y scroll to work the first time. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to say flex justify content. No, justify. Is it justify? Between, separate the two. This is something to do about grep. Damn it. I need to set up that flex to be a column. Yep. Okay, so now we're back. Okay. Closer. If I make this small enough that scrolling would be necessary. Hey, look at that. Look at that. Go team. I'm proud of us. We did a thing. We did it. Okay. We're going to create a bunch of messages like, hi. Oh, did enter work? Konnichiwa. And how do you say Ruby on Rails in Japanese? Rolling on Rails. That's great. Rolling on Rails. All right, sure. What's the weather today? Okay, it's clear. And who's your favorite J-pop band? Again, I just got to ask enough shit to fill up the screen. I'm not having fun here. This is very similar. Likes the band Exile. J-pop band. Exile. What do they look like? 19-member Japanese boy band. That is too many boys. That's ridiculous. Look at that. How does anyone keep them straight? Oh, it's because they have funny costumes. I'm sure that there's like a sassy one. I would like the sassy one, please. Please don't judge me. I have to tell myself no one is watching this. So as much as I do like your comments and your emails to let's@playstupid.games. That's the one. Just send the email. I need to tell myself like I'm just on an island and I'm just hanging out. All right, one last question so we can start scrolling. What's a soda in Japan like Canada Dry? Of course, this is like, I happen to have a Canada Dry right here. Scrolling. Canada Dry no yona soda wa arimasen. There's nothing like it. Kore ni ginger ale ga yoku nomarete imasu. So you can just order a ginger ale. But nothing like Canada Dry. You gotta have a ginger ale, totally unrelated product. That's very unsimilar. Okay, so now we're scrolling. Of course, every time we have a new message, we would want to scroll to bottom. I don't want to solve that right now because we'll probably end up getting into like stimulus territory in JavaScript. I do want to stretch this out a little. Make this form field look a little bit more natural. So create message. Where's that living at? First, I bet you it's if I just do this, derp label name. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a syntax error. Okay. Submit name Rails view. Oh, is it just the first thing? No. Did I put a comma there the first time? Oh, silly me. Of course, that's not parsable. Anyway. If I say arrow up for now, just get through this for the second. Okay. And then I say on this one, class width full. All right. So that's set width to 100, which is not what we want. We want instead probably another flexbox. It's what the world runs on. Div class flex. Thinking. Justify between may or may not be necessary. I've been using flex long enough that like I know just throw shit at the wall until it fits, until it sticks. Okay, so here I can see this is the very bottom of the screen, so it's probably difficult. How rude of me. So I've moved this down now to the point where you wouldn't be able to see it if you got the play controls at the bottom of your YouTubes. So here we go. Okay, it doesn't look fantastic, but it looks more like it's a chat now. Rather than put this horizontal rule between everything, which we were just doing as a temporary hack, we could instead say class rounded. Whoopsie. Ignore this, all these things. And do background accent. right? Okay. And we can do a with fit. What that is doing, it's like probably a new thing with fit content. So we're just going to pretend everything can do that. We're going to add a little bit of padding. So we're going to say py small, which is 4 pixels. XS, extra small, 2 pixels. And px is going to be 1. Small, 4 pixels. So let's take a... I also opened a Bing chat for some reason, just like in case I was like, help, I don't know how to do Tailwind. I was really worried about forgetting all this. Still, I mean, don't feel great. Okay, open this up. So now I can see I've got a whole bunch of stuff, but you can see like it's not clear who's speaking, right? So we got to work on that. Well, we don't actually have a way to ascertain right now in our data model who's speaking. So we can leave this as a to-do if we like, I suppose. Say chat ID, text, created at, yeah, we're not saving anything else. So what we could do is put together a real quick migration. We're just going to hack this in. Migration, determine add humanity to messages. And of course, by add humanity, I mean add a Boolean. Oh. I love being able to command click shit. That's great. Change table is nice because it's reversible. Messages do T, and thank you very much, GitHub Copilot. Boolean, human, null, false, default, false. Cool. Sure. True. So when we have, where were we working yesterday? So again, thinking like whenever I don't know where some code is, I could navigate the tree hierarchy, but it takes a while. I could also grep, and that takes a while. Instead, I prefer just to work outside in, which is why it's so devastating to me that I don't have a definition-based like command clickable Ruby plugin that I like just right now. So we're going to start outside in the chats controller, and then we're going to keep command Ping until we get where we want to go. Excuse me, the messages controller. We're going to do asks for a reply. That was the name of the thing that we built. Saves message, so it's going to certainly be in there. We worked on this together. Message save, build adders, and here, okay, so now it's actually chat, text, human from bot is true. Human false, and here we can say, wait a second. To be clear, these adders are just a hash, so I'm going to explicitly set them to a hash instead of look like I'm using keyword arguments, because I'm not. Same thing goes here, human true. Sometimes GitHub Copilot is just really bad at balancing parens correctly. All right. Okay. Is there anything I can do to easily recover the current list, go through the data and fix it? Or should I just start a new chat? I'll start a new chat because I got the scrolling thing working. It doesn't need to be long. So bin rake db migrate. Run the migration. Wonderful. I do a couple things every time that I first of all, I love clearing my screen, so I just hit Command Shift W. First, I check the schema if I can. Make sure this looks right. I didn't add any indices at all here. And then I do another thing, which is I make sure that it's reversible. So here there's a special command, rake task db migrate redo. What the fuck? Redo. Gotta say it in American. All right, so we revert, it goes back, it reverted, and then forward again. If a migration ends up not being revertible, then it's not safe, and you need to either declare it as an irreversible migration, which you should go out of your way to try to not make any irreversible migrations, in my opinion. Or you go through and try to figure out like why did change tables do the wrong thing. Because we could have done up and down methods here and then manually, but then that would have required us to actually correctly specify the down migration. Anyway, this is fine. Okay, so here we go. So we still got all these So we're gonna just do. Is it safe to do? Well, you know what? I was asking myself, is it safe to drop the database and then recreate it? And I didn't know the answer. Since I'm in a solo gig right now, oh yeah, I gotta kill the server so it can drop the database. I would much rather here just drop it and create it. And if something about that is a pain in the ass for me, then it's feedback to me that it's not easy enough to onboard onto my system. So like whenever people are precious about developer data, I'm always like, let's make it easier to blow it up and start over until it's so easy anyone can do it. And then you don't have like an onboarding experience of like many days for poor new developers just trying to prove themselves, trying to fit in. They got enough problems enough as it is to join your team. Can't find chat ID 1. That's because this route will create it. All right, neat. Hi. Konnichiwa. Okay, cool. So now we got enough what we need to put these messages between each other. We're cooking with the gas, I say. We're going to go to chats. Show. Cool. And then up here, we can do this a couple ways, right? You could use a helper to print a class back and then just remember to declare your helpers as one of the places where shit can live. We can say, oh, in fact, there's already one. Great. Wonderful. Just like this. We could also do a ternary here using ERB, which is ugly as sin, but I don't know. I've done stupider stuff. We could say message.human. If it's human, do this. If otherwise, do that. So if it's human, we want to pull it to the right, right? So what's the best way to do this? I'm anchored because we've been using Flexbox a bit. I want to use Flexbox and just organize it that way, but that's not quite right. If I could position relative this thing, and is that true? Can I do that? If I say this seems really wrong. To be absolute position, it won't flow correctly. Yoinks. Too many. I imagine this has something to do. Oh, yeah. So a thing about Ruby is ternaries are painful because a lot of times you're calling what I believe is called a predicate method. That is a method that just returns a truthy or falsy thing. And then you got to have the question mark on that. And then you got another question mark to get the ternary correct. So did that. Oh, look at that. But, this doesn't bode well. Hi. It's going to, I guess hi was a stupid choice. It's going to just slam all those things up in the corner. And I guess they're all absolute position? Well, that would be a problem. So that's not right. Yeah, I guess if I'd margin auto, I did. If I do this, will it? Hey! Wow, I've never actually used margin left or margin right auto when I wasn't just doing both sides autoing to center something. I like that, by the way, the chatbot got more bored with us. Hi, exclamation point. Hi, exclamation point. Hello. And it's like, yeah, hi, I'm getting bored with you. Otherwise, the same response. All right. That seems good. Let's add some margin to the top here of each of these messages. We'll say margin 1. Margin top 1, MT1. Okay, so there's some space between them. We also want some space on the edges, right? And we only want space on the edge that you are opposed to. So I want MR1 here and ML1 on the other side, right? There we go. And if I look at the width, I can narrow this down a good deal, okay? But I want to change the colors, right? And so a funny thing, I almost opened my messages app and that would have been dangerous. Funny thing is, people complain about the green bubbles, blue bubbles thing. Like, oh, you're a green bubble because you use Android. The funny thing is, and I think the reason it's so psychologically powerful is that you are always like the color and the other person's color is always gray. I presume to maximize contrast to make it the most readable, so the inbound stuff is the most readable. But like what it effectively means is that when you want to contact an Android user, if you're an iPhone user in iMessage, they are inflicting upon you greenness. You have to be green. Your messages are green. So the color, the accent color, in my opinion, should be for when it is you speaking, because that's how it is in iMessage. And I'm very anchored by my experience with iMessage. When it's this one, I'm content to use BG secondary because I know that exists. Look at that. There we go. All right, cool. So we made some progress. I would love to figure out how to do like a little like trail off dingus here, but I'm not going to do that right now. I could do a border. I could do a shadow. Think of the options. Well, we haven't shown shadows yet, so let's do a shadow small. We're running out of time here. We're right at 50 minutes, which is kind of where I like to wrap things. Sometimes whenever I can't tell that, whenever I can't tell CSS is doing what I think, I always do the most extreme possible version. Yeah, this doesn't seem to be doing anything. Do I have to say shadow? Doesn't sound right. The underlines there are great, by the way. The Tailwind plugin saying, hey, you defined this thing twice. I don't know why it's not printing it, but if I say problems, it'll say, hey, you applies the same CSS properties as this other one, so you probably don't want both. What if I say box shadow? Does that work? Shadow box? Border? Just the design is mostly driven based on like whether or not autocomplete's working. I don't know. Border, secondary. Try that. All right, that's cute. But we're gonna do an opacity of. Look at this. Now to do opacity is you do slash. So let's make it lighter. So 40. See? Tell me that's not slick if you haven't used that before. All right. So next up on wrapping up this little view. Oh, I just had a thought. I've lost it. Oh, right. I want to show off dark mode. So I'm going to use Raycast to very quickly switch to dark mode. Raycast, another application that I was introduced to by Derek Briggs, aka @PixelJanitor. He's a great person. So you can just hit toggle system appearance. And look at that. It actually kind of looks right. Isn't that neat? I think that if I had it to do again, if I had some more time, I'd make the background pure black. In fact, if I had more time, like what the hell am I doing with my life? I got all kinds of time. Hello, hi. It's let's play stupid.games. Be my friend. I am lonely. All right. Let's make it boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Pure black. Super dark. And now, of course, the broader background is a problem. So I will declare the body of layout application. And you can just sort of see how much futzing goes into this kind of stuff. We'll call that BG secondary. All right. That doesn't look half bad. Now, we didn't even pull in an icon. If I had more time, I would go to Hero Icons, Tailwind, which is a Tailwind sponsored icon set, and I would say up arrow. Arrow. See if there's any good ups. This is a little fatter. I might do that. No, this is even better. I'd copy that SVG, I'd save it as a partial, and I'd pop it in. But I want to respect your time, and I don't want more frames to drop like last week where I had to do a whole bunch of editing because apparently over 50 minutes and a bunch of frames drop when you're doing continuity camera. I don't know why to share that with you. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. Thanks a lot for hanging out. Look at what we just made. Now it feels real, right? We'll keep improving it. Like, for example, I'm already annoyed at how big it is. Like, I feel like the biggest should be medium. Yeah, that's better. Well, thanks for hanging out with me. It's always fun. And now let's just keep up the good work. I'll see you later. Bye.